Hi. The self-driving on Teslas, I've studied it for lots of years. It's really interesting how it works. I'll break it down. When you look at a picture on your cell phone, it's made up of a lot of dots. Each of those dots contains a red, green, and blue light. You've heard of RGB. That's what it stands for, is red, green, and blue. You have the primary colors of pigments, like paint. When you mix different color paints together, they're red, yellow, and blue, and you can make any color with those. With light, red, green, and blue are the primary colors. The red, green, and blue lights inside the LED are what make it different colors. And so you might have millions of them that's making up your screen. If you have 1,000 by 1,000 pixels, then that's 1,000,000 pixels, and each one of them has 3 lights, the red, green, and blue. So that's 3,000,000 lights making up that one picture. In a computer, you can adjust them from 0 to 255, where 255 is the brightest. And the reason for that number is because that's 256 different things. And the reason for that is because you have a bit, which is how computers work, which means electricity goes through or doesn't. You may hear the terms ones and zeros, but that's technically not what it is. It means it's on or off. And people just represent that with ones or zeros. So these electronic switches, they're on or off in different sequences, and that's how computers work. So if you take 8 of those, if you have, just say one of them to begin with, it can be off or on. That's 2 options. Now if you have another one that's on while this is off or on, you have a total of 2 options. But this is off while this is off or on, so that can be another 2 options. Now, if you add a third one, then you have the 2 options here and the 2 options with this, so you have 4 options. And this third one can be off or on as well for each of these 4 options. So that doubles that, which makes 8 options. And you can have those 8 options with another one, another bit turned off, and then you can have it also with it turned on. So that doubles that amount of options to 16. So you can keep doing like that. It'll go higher and higher. Basically, it's 2 raised to the power of however many bits you have. Bit is the on or off electronic switch. So if you have 8 of those, that's what's called a byte. Like you hear megabytes. Mega means million. So a megabyte is 1,000,000 bytes. And each byte is 8 bits. So a megabyte is 8,000,000 bits, or 8,000,000 on or off switches. You start out and say 2 options for the first thing. And if you combine that with another one, there's 4 options. Combine that with another one, it doubles that, which is 8. Double that to 16, then 32, 64, 128, 256. Notice that's really close to 255, the values that you can make the pixel ranges from, or 2. So the reason it's 255 and not 256 is because you start at 0. Typically when you count, you start at 1. But in a lot of stuff with computers, you start at 0. So 0 is one thing, and then you have 255 other things, which makes 256 options. So each of those lights can be turned to 256 different levels of brightness. That many for red, 256 options for green, and 256 options for blue. So that means each pixel has 256 to the 3rd power options you can turn it to, which is about 16 million. So you could technically control each pixel and make it 16 million different colors. And a lot of the in-between parts of the colors is not differentiable by humans. Like if you go from, if you just add one number to it, it doesn't change that much. But anyway, that's how a computer screen or a cell phone screen or stuff like that, if it's RGB, or a TV screen, that's how those things work. And with self-driving cars or image recognition and stuff like that, you can take, when you take a picture, you can convert it to those numbers, convert the brightness of the red, green, and blue to those numbers. And so artificial intelligence, most AI it consists of neural networks, which is tries to somewhat emulate the way the brain works. But what it'll do is basically it's mathematics, a lot of statistics, some linear algebra and calculus and computer science. So you could technically make a neural network with pencil and paper, which I've done before. It was a super simple one, but I made it actually technically learn and did 2 iterations of what's called a forward pass, the loss calculation, the partial derivative calculations, and the back pass with gradient descent, and then forward pass and repeat the cycle. And you can see that the loss, which tells how far off the guess is from the correct answer, the loss decreases, which means it gets less and less wrong. And so it technically trains. So anyway, you can take those numbers from the camera, the 256 options for each red, green, and blue, and you can put those numbers into AI stuff or neural networks, because neural networks are mathematics. And so you take those numbers, you put them into the mathematics, and you can make it do a lot of calculations and stuff. And a lot of dot products is a lot of what's done with neural networks. So you can run those numbers through there, and then it'll pop out with a number. So if you're doing things with neural networks with discrete values, there's discrete and continuous. Discrete means that, like, this is a dog or a cat or a mouse. Continuous could be like, what is the temperature? It's 37.2 degrees or 37.278 degrees or 39.342 degrees or whatever. In other words, it's basically an infinite number of things in between one number and another. So it's continuous. So, but a discrete thing, like the cat, dog, mouse, it's only 3 things. So with the discrete things, you could say, all right, let 0 represent a cat, 1 represent a dog, and 2 represent a mouse. So you run the numbers from the pixel values through the neural network, and you make it where it pops out with 3 numbers at the end. And those numbers would be a representation of what it thinks the answer is. Is it 0, 1, or 2? And remember, each of those represents one of the animals, a cat, dog, or mouse. So what it'll do is probably guess wrong to begin with, but you can see how far off it is. Then you can make it go back and do adjustments and try again, and it should get closer to the correct answer. And then see how far off it is, make it go back, make adjustments, try again, and get closer and closer and closer. Do that with a whole lot of pictures with different varieties, and it will make all these adjustments to numbers, and eventually it'll get more and more correct. So you can eventually show it something it hasn't seen before, and it would be more likely that it would guess right. And so that's pretty much how AI stuff works. So with a Tesla, for example, you have, I believe it's 8 cameras, and they're not super expensive. Regular cameras would work, but I think Teslas, they have the regular red, green, and blue, but they have, I believe it's infrared or something like that, so it can see through the snow and rain and stuff too. But it'll take the values using unassigned 8-bit integers, they're called, or unsigned 8-bit integers. And it'll take those numbers and make it predict like what angle the steering wheel should turn, or like what's in front of the car. And if there's another car coming, it might identify that as a car coming toward that one, and it'll do the calculations, say, how do I keep the driver safe? The one driving this car and the other car, and so on, or stuff like that. So it'll try to figure out the best option, in other words, and control the steering wheel, gas, and brake, and so on, based on the information coming in from the cameras. And I think it has some maybe sonar sensors and stuff too. But LiDAR, some vehicles use LiDAR, but they're super expensive. And Musk was saying basically like it would cost way too much for people to buy cars with LiDAR. And it adds another, I think, you might look it up to verify. I think I've heard at one point it would add like another $30,000 cost to a vehicle to use LiDAR. So, like the roads are made for humans, the humans to see with the what would be what a camera could interpret in the red, green, blue pictures or red, green, and blue pixel values. So that's what Tesla is using, and uses infrared also, I think. So anyway, that's kind of how neural networks work. And I guess that's it for now. If you have any questions or comments, let me know, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Please click like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, let me know. Thanks.